Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you knew that God was calling you out to do something that you had never taken interest in before, nor did you ever think that you would have a desire for it or were equipped for it? Something that may have been so far off of your radar that nothing could have ever convinced you that you would be at this place one day. Well, this is exactly where today's guests found themselves during Missions Week at their church. As they sat in the service and listened to the stories, they began to feel a stirring in their hearts for missions and soon found themselves right in the middle of Ghana, Africa, and at the beginning of an incredible journey. Please welcome a two-part series with our guests, Troy and Casey Haight from OneStepInFaith.org.
This is April.
And this is Tiffany.
And you're listening to the Tea of Life podcast.
Woohoo!
Yay. Sorry, you're excited that you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. We're so excited that you're here today. Yeah. So Troy and I worked together at Home Depot, and it was probably about 20 or so years ago.
Which makes you old. It does make me old.
I'm being generous with that number. But we recently ran into each other at KSU, where our kids were taking their end-of-year test because we do the same homeschooling program, which we didn't know about either. So now you have to understand that I do not usually recognize people, and especially people that I haven't seen in a really long time. It's just not my gifting. I have a friend who can identify anyone and everyone that she's ever come in contact with, but that is just not me. However, as soon as I saw Troy, I immediately identified him as someone that I knew. I tiptoed around a bit, hoping that I could figure out how I knew him, hoping that you would kind of recognize me, maybe. But that never happened. I ended up going up to you, which is something that I also never do, and I asked you who you were. I just had to figure it out, and after tracking back the past 20 years or so, we finally came to the agreement that we knew each other from Home Depot. However, the Troy that I remember is who you are today. How you look and everything. And I know that you probably didn't look like this 20 years ago.
No.
Just saying. So I'm guessing that it was just the Holy Spirit that gave me a strong sense of familiarity to you, because God wanted me to strike up a conversation that would lead to this interview today.
Yeah. I thought it was my beauty.
Totally.
That's a beautiful man.
That's funny. So had you told me, I guess, 20 plus years ago that I would be interviewing you today on this podcast, first of all, I'd probably say, what is a podcast?
Yeah,
right? And then, you would say, it's a talk show on the internet, to which I would say, what's the internet? Right? Yeah. So Troy and Casey, your story is absolutely amazing. Troy sat and talked for hours.
I did.
At KSU and kind of filled us in on your story. And I just knew that I had to have you on the show and had to have your story be shared out with so many other people. So many people need to hear what you guys have to say and what you've done and your adventure, how you got there, what started it, where you have been, where you are now, and where you plan on going in the future.
What started it, huh? Well, God started it.
That's what I was going to say, because you're saying what we've done. So we don't, that's one of the big things with One Step in Faith is the name of our organization. And those that partner with us is that we don't, and even every time when we pray is never taking credit for any of it, because we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. And so when you said 20 years plus ago, I don't even think that we would even have thought we would be in this place that we are today.
No.
So the person that you saw, it had to be the Holy Spirit that was discerning that, because where he was in his life, where I was in my life, it's a different place. Mm-hmm. Where we were when we launched One Step in Faith, where we were when we entered into the calling of missions, where each step of that are getting that closeness with the Holy Spirit and with the Lord's plan and his growth and using us as a tool. We're nothing like that person, so it has to be the Holy Spirit, and that's what's so amazing about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think Georgia had, many borders. I thought Georgia was dead. I didn't know I had to leave.
You didn't know you had to leave.
No. So the big joke that we always tell everybody is that when we met, so we've been married 20 years this year.
Oh, okay.
We had our 20th in April.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
But we dated for a year, so 21.
21 years ago,
Yeah, let's not
we
leave that
started
1
dating.
year
It was
out.
really clear international is like not his thing, but it's always been mine. And when I was a kid, I would not dream like daydream, like in my sleep. I was having constant dreams of mission work specific to Africa, a couple other different ones related to Middle East, which even back then wasn't on a kid's radar, certainly not ours. And so if I ever talked to anybody about it, I really did not have support. It was more like, yeah, that's ridiculous. So you get to a place where you stop sharing. But then after dating for a while, and we were, talking about getting married and things like that. So, you start to share more and deep, and right out of the bat, just, hey, listen, just so that you're clear, that may be your calling. Honestly, it might be. But if you're getting married to me, if we're getting married, that's not our calling. And so there went the dream. It went in a little box on the shelf.
He said that to you.
Oh, yeah. In a
Okay.
box on the shelf for
Wasn't
a long
scared.
time.
Shut it down.
Yeah. Boom. Breaks.
And so then fast forward and living for ourselves. Because a lot of people do. You think, well, my priority is my husband. My priority is my kids. And a lot of people find it very backwards for us. Well, my priority is God first. And so even if it's at the sacrifice of my husband and my kids, it feels not nice. And so a lot of people struggle with it. So we did. We lived for ourselves. We both grew up in church and everything. But we didn't live for that. And we tried to have children, and it was unsuccessful for a really long time. And when all of a sudden the Lord opened a door for us to possibly be able to have kids, through in vitro, we did it. And although we're not spokespeople against it, so please don't misunderstand, that's not what this statement's about. But our journey should not have included that. That piece was Abraham and Sarah. Casey and Troy took it into our own hands, and we decided that we were supposed to have a kid because Troy told me when we got married that God told him that he was going to be a dad. Well, that doesn't exactly mean how you're going to be a dad. So we did in vitro, and we had 3, and we lost one early. And then 5 months in, we were told that I was going to lose, we had a girl and a boy, and I was going to lose the girl. So then through some more testing, they said, well, I think we should abort now. And that's like, we don't believe in that. We can't do that. And did not have the medical support for the decision. When we reached out to family thought we were, what are you thinking? Because they're telling you you're at risk to lose both. What are you thinking? And I'm like, and telling Troy, I can't do it. I cannot do it. And he said, we're not doing it. That's all there is to it. So we called our regular OB doctor, and she's like, well, I'm so glad because I couldn't be your doctor anymore if you had decided to. I'm like, well, then help me understand how do we go forward, because I could lose them both, right? And she said, I actually disagree with your doctor. I think that you're putting both of them at risk by doing this. So we went forward knowing at month 5 into the pregnancy that we would lose our daughter. And she was born 2 months early. I went to non-stress tests every 2 weeks, because when you have twins, you're at risk. When you have twins and you're an at-risk pregnancy, because one of them is, has a problem like this, you go often. And so I was in labor. My body kept trying to go into labor forever. Of course, it didn't help that I'm outside painting or working 24 hours straight at work or whatever, because I just don't have an off button. And so constantly making him nervous, and he's at my side, constantly, what are you doing? You're driving me crazy. So anyway, we went to the appointment, and they said, okay, the boy is healthy enough that with modern science and all of the techniques that they have today to help the lungs function outside of the womb faster and build and grow or whatever, that if you went into labor, we're not going to stop it anymore. And I said, really? And I'm like, and ironically, today's the day you don't have to, I'm not even going into labor today. Like every time I would go for these appointments, they were having to, give me injections to stop the contractions and stop labor. And I didn't have to. And they're like, okay, well, so we're on track. We'll just see you in 2 weeks. Fine, no problem. So went home, and that night I was telling Troy, I think I'm having a baby. And so my water broke. There's no stopping it then.
Right.
And so we tell our son that his sister waited till it was okay. And then she came. She lived an hour and a half. She was teeny, teeny, tiny, from the tip of your fingers to the base of your hand size. The part from the tip of his finger to his first knuckle on his index finger, that's the size of her whole hand. And so we had an hour and a half with her. That was it. And that is the moment. And we had met this lady through an organization we were referred to work with on what do you do when you know that you're planning for a birth and a death? Like, how do you put that together? Because it's not super easy to do. A lot of people so we learned we didn't fit into any type of groups where people have lost their children in this situation because, you got a child.
Right.
So how can you not, we want to make sure that it sounds ridiculous, that you grieve enough. Otherwise, what is there? God's going to punish you because you don't grieve enough, or that we're not joyful enough. So is he going to punish us because we're not thankful enough? And so you're stuck in this constant. And then you have the family around you that's like, move on with your life, get over it.
Right.
And they don't mean it that way. It just comes across that way. Their entire heart is they're sorry that you're sad all the time. They don't know how to help you. So it's not that, but that on the hurting side, it just feels like nobody cares. Just get on with your life. Well, okay, so how do you do that? And what happened, this woman that had been working with us warned us, it's going to get worse before it gets better. So don't think that it gets better from here. It'll be about 3 years. Because just like a divorce, which I didn't know, but it takes about 3 years to go through the grieving process. On the third year, it'll be you'll find yourself in the bottom pit and you'll work a way out. Wow. Year 3, we were separated.
I read that.
So you can just do the math on how you get there because women and men deal with them things separately and differently. And
I couldn't find my sensitive side. Sorry.
You don't realize that it all stems though back from Violet. It wasn't until the third year when we were getting help together that we figured out that it was the brokenness from 3 years when we had lost our daughter. But where we are today.
And that's Violet. You mentioned Violet.
Yes, Violet. Thank
Okay.
you.
Oh.
Yeah, our daughter Violet. So his grandmother is a big part of his life. And of course so this is another little tidbit in our family is Troy goes by his middle name, his brothers by his middle name. All of our kids go by their middle name, but Violet goes by her first name. And that was intentional. We knew that we were going to do that from the beginning. And it's not taboo in our house. Like we talk about her all the time. And she was born with trisomy 13. And a lot of people out there, we found that for as rare as that is, we've met several people, just random.
I have one of my best friends actually had a baby trisomy. Yeah.
What?
So the anomalies are all different. Ours was that she, amongst many other things, she didn't have a brain. So for all the other things that she didn't have working for her, I mean, you just can't live very long without that. You can live for up to a year, we learned, with just a brainstem.
What are you talking
But then
about?
when you add in, she only had 2 chambers of the heart
I lived
and no
44
kidneys.
years without a brain.
Oh, that's not true. So Violet's purpose in her life, people would say she didn't have one. But she did. For her life, she reminded us on the value of every moment in life. And that every child deserves to have the right to life. And that nobody can take that from you. Only God has the keys to life and death. That's what our missionary friends who work with us and that are on our board and work with us in Ghana say all the time. Only God has the power for that. And because of our faithfulness to push forward for her right to live, hence comes Once Upon Faith. Because once upon a time, my husband sat in church and he heard about missions and he knew that his wife had been called and that on the shelf is that box that we put that dream in. And as I was leaving to go get the kids out of their classrooms, and he came up to me and he's like, okay, I know we're supposed to go. But don't get super excited because I can't do like something like Africa, and I know that's where you want to go. So it's going to have to be something
I
small.
could do Hawaii.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's like, but I know exactly which table it is. I know the Holy Spirit's drawing me to this one particular table. Well, you know, at our church, they do them up, man. I mean, like the tables have like all of sometimes there's even the food from the area, but a lot of the tablecloths and sometimes jewelry and varying pictures and different things. This particular one, I don't know if it was just last minute decision that, yes, we're going to take a team or what the deal was, but it was just the regular table, a picture, and the applications. And I'm like, this is the table? Mm-hmm.
Simple,
I see the
simple
little-
table for a simple man.
So I saw everything on there and I said, you're sure this is the table? Yes. You're positive? Yes. So I looked at the young girl that's behind the table and I said, Ghana's in West Africa, right? And she said, yes. And I looked at him and he was, the blood had drained out of his face. So we grabbed that application and a month had passed and I was like, yeah, we're not going. And so there we sat. We had to, a friend of ours was a pastor at a church that we were members of before, and she had asked us to come and support her because she was being evaluated by her leadership, and it's that time of year kind of thing. And so we came, and then they were having a celebration the next Sunday. So there's a few Sundays where we were back in our home church, the old home church. The kids were missing. Riverstone is the church that we go to, and so they were missing Riverstone, and so we went. And wouldn't you know? There's the announcements. For all of those that are interested in going on the Ghana, West Africa mission trip, and we're having our first informational meeting today after the service. And so I look at him, and he said, yes, I get it. I get it. And so the rest, so they would say, is history, except to say that every day as we prepared to go, and he knew we were going, it was just constant emotional battle with him. We're not going, we're going. We're not going, we're going. We're not going, we're going. I was like, oh my gosh, this roller coaster is going to kill me.
Yeah, there's your feminine side.
Yes.
It wasn't like I was choosing between flats and pumps.
Yes. So, but as soon as we got off the airplane, that's what he tells everyone is.
I was home.
To say that, to go from I don't want to go at all to that, it's God.
To have the smell when you get off the plane and say that.
Yeah.
You have to be serious.
As soon as you get off the plane. I've never quite experienced that before.
And you said it wasn't only you that felt home, but they at the airport were welcoming you.
Oh yeah, it was quite odd when you get off an airplane and Africans, and it's not like Hartsville.
Right,
They greet you.
the
You
same.
walk in the door, and of course you have to go through immigrations and customs, and that's a little odd because if you've never been to a third world country, everybody's holding machine guns.
Yes.
I'm gonna get killed here. But no, I mean, as soon as we got in the airport, it was like God showed us favor the whole time, and He's been showing us favor for 10 years now. Every time we go, I start singing native songs.
Yeah.
Well, last time we didn't even go through customs. We just
that's-
walked right past everybody else.
So we've had other teams from our
Amazing.
church.
Unheard of.
Yeah, we've had other teams from our church go, and they get pulled aside, and they have to pay the bribe to get through.
Well, I don't know. I think they work around trying to have to pay the bribe, but they definitely they go through their things.
Yeah.
They don't even, we've had them crack open a tote and look, and then but look, everything that's here, every single thing that's in these
It's
totes,
for
we leave
your
here.
country and your people, and they
So-
understand
and
what we're there to do.
School supplies and, clothing and
peanut butter.
shoes and
Yes.
Smuggling in peanut butter, pancake mix.
How soon after that was it that you realized that this is what we want to do full time? I am not going to quit my job, and we're going to do
You want me to
missions
answer
full
that?
time.
It was a week later. We were still there, and I'm asking the missionary that's leading the team, hey, how do you move here?
Were you trying to figure out how to become a missionary or just how to quit Home Depot? Like, I'm trying to figure out which one. What was the motivation here?
Well, how to become a missionary.
Comment there.
He's like, I found my out. I'm going to Africa.
Course, and we were still old baby Christians. We were still getting back into our faith then too. So we were still holding on to the financial part of everything. You can't quit your job. We need 2 jobs. We have a house and 3 kids.
And our kids need to go to
blah,
school here. Those are pieces.
Yeah.
So how can we live in both worlds? That's from the beginning. It has been how to live in both worlds, which God somehow has provided a way. I'm just saying that it's not actually the easiest thing, but He has. He just has.
And so is that how you then sought out maybe GCA and started doing it?
That is when
more
we sought out
traveling and this.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the kids were going to private school, and it's like, okay, so if we're doing this gig, there's no way we can afford private school. That ain't gonna work. And so, but then if you start to go in traditional school, there's a lot of
guns.
risk of what they're exposed to,
There's
and
guns
there is
up in
absolutely
there.
zero negative about the public school system. So don't misunderstand. It is everybody has their journey and what it is that their kids are supposed to get out of school. Our kids are super, super innocent, and people have negative connotation about your kids staying innocent for too long, and I happen to disagree with that. That the benefit of being innocent for as long as you possibly can is that you are more mature when you are exposed to all of the excitement of the world has to offer. So that when you are making your decisions, you are making them, and you're not having other people guide you in those decisions.
You have a
And
firm
so-
foundation
Yes, ma'am.
stand on.
But I will say, in their innocence, we do take them on mission trips down to the Bluffs in Atlanta. They go down there and pick up trash and play with the kids. And I mean, they've been to Africa. When they go to Africa, they run without shoes on. And we're like, "Whoa, put your shoes on." But anyway, they're culturally, I think they're versed.
Good.
Yeah, because there's
They're not sheltered by any mean when they go to Africa. We do pray over them. We pray that God only open their eyes to what He wants them to
Right,
see.
but you know
and
what? When
not-
God called you to Africa, having kids didn't take him by surprise.
Right.
He knew that you're going to have these kids
Yes.
and be traveling to Africa at the same time.
And they've all adapted, I think, fairly well. I mean, we've had, of course, their kids and they're going to have their issues, but all in all, I think they love Ghana and they're really, really stoked about going to Greece. So
They love Ghana. They had a trip that was a little bit more difficult than others.
it was a
And
little rough.
there are parts of northern Ghana where just socially they interact differently and they're a little bit more physical because it's a part of the conversation. You know, we sit and chat and whatever, and we raise our kids, do not fight. Well, fighting's a part of the conversation.
Oh, okay.
And so our kids, they're just not really sure how to respond to somebody punching them. Do what?
Right.
Mommy, they punched me. And so I don't like it here. And so then, having a Ghanaian woman step in and saying, I've got this, let me take care of it, and trying to explain to him. So what your response should be is like, hit him back. Yeah, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So they struggled. And yet if you ask them now, they remember less and less of those little moments and more of, this child that we met who touched our heart, or that one. And Mommy, remember that one little boy, how wonderful he was and how they were picking on him, but he just got up there and he scored the biggest goal at playing soccer. And so that's what they remember. So we do ministry here local too. So that now we're trying and looking for more refugee related, because that's part of where our future is going. But the inner city stuff that he's talking about, the Bluffs, there's for those people that are out there and they feel the Lord is calling them, and Africa is not your neighborhood. It's okay. There's a lot of neighborhoods around here. And if you're looking for some people that are just needing a hug, the Bluffs are a place that there's a lot of people out there just waiting for you to show up and give them a hug. And there's several ministries, more than happy to share some that we've worked with. Some of them are with kids and some of them with adults. Doesn't even have to be. Most of the work that we do is with kids, but more than happy to share because they do some really great and amazing things out there. And our kids have really benefited from witnessing. And take your kids, don't be afraid. For those that aren't familiar, that the Bluffs are, Atlanta is like, one of the top cities for heroin addiction and whatnot. The Bluffs is the corner. But we took our kids because that's life that we live in. And it's covered. It's not like we take them and drop them and say,
Right.
We'll be back.
we're in a group of people
Right.
and you're praying over them and you're taking them aside and just loving on them and giving them a hug. And it doesn't matter that you haven't bathed in probably a year. Who cares? We love you. And so we'll sit with you because God created you too. And you have a purpose.
Well, and that bring up passion. I think all three of our kids have passions for some type of mission work now. Our middle son, I don't know where he got the passion, but I think he's headed China.
Really?
It really is.
He is fascinated with the Chinese culture and the food. And
So the question was about how do we get from all of that background to where we are now.
point A to
And
point B, we'll just have to say God.
when he went to those missionaries and was asking, what does it take? And we came home and the reality of this is still life and there's still things that we need to consider. And our kids did not go with us on that first trip. And we knew though there is a long-term pull here. And so what is it and what does it look like? One of the other gentlemen that was on that trip, Dave Bartlett, he had a stint of time in which his parents, they lived in Ghana. By the way, he's like, we call him Daddy Dave, so he's like parental age. So he's not our age, he's much more mature than us. And as he had been to Ghana more than once, and again, because his parents had lived there, I think when he was either in high school or in college, he would go and visit in the summers or on their holidays or whatnot. And so fast forward until, his age of, okay, the Lord's calling me to missions. Ghana is where my heart is. Let's go there. And so he could instantly see our pull. And they would go on what Troy would call walkabouts while we were in Ghana. And wee hours in the morning, go on a walk. And so in their manly sharing had made the determination that we need to continue to stay connected. And so he introduced us to his friend, who is now his wife. And so the four of us have kind of been on this journey together, I would say. They have their journey, we have our journey, but we certainly would say that our hearts are somewhat deeply connected to Ghana together. And we love them. They're amazing.
Your team. They're your in-country director.
Yes.
Yes. And Ellen and Dave Bartlett, they live full-time in the northern part of Ghana, Bolgatanga. Most of the kids that we work with are from there. And in 2010, we took a team of just the four of us. And we spent time there and just trying to figure out, God, what do you want for us to do? We know we're supposed to be together. He'd given us, kind of some visions and dreams.
The Caleb Joshua thing, like going out and seeing what the land was like, or you?
The Lord was kind of putting a way for us to build up our knowledge, experience, training for ministries to go and pour into the pastors and the leaders and whatnot in Ghana to give them the tools that they need to help with. One of the things that they do is in addiction recovery. So people think of Ghana, West Africa, and you go out into these villages. What could they be having addiction to? Okay, look, they're extremely oppressed people who want to escape their life. So alcoholism, big deal. But they live in such a spiritual, amnestic world in a lot of these places that taking responsibility for their own actions is very rare. So the juju, the witch doctor, put a curse on me. Whatever it is, right? So you have something against me, you went to the juju, you got something, that's why I'm dealing with all these problems. It's not because I'm an alcoholic. So they do some work with that, but you can't be from the United States helping them directly. So you're helping these leaders, these Africans, be able to take this into their tool belt. And that's one of the things that they do. Okay, so what other tools, Lord, do you have for us? And so we got trained in Sozo. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a healing ministry that our church does some of.
Oh, yes.
It came out
Riverstone, your church, yes. I'm totally.
And so they also do, so it came or initiated, at least from our church, initiated out of the Bethel Church in California. And so we went as the four of us went to Bethel to get, more insight, just praying over, Lord, how are we supposed to use this? And we were just 100%, 1,000% sure. The Lord did all of these, what is that game, 7 Degrees of Separation?
Yeah.
To
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
So we have one that's called, and I actually have a document, and it's called 7 Degrees Separation Ghana Style, because we were meeting random people through random people, and we all knew the same people.
Wow.
So, and it's the most unusual of unusual stories. And so we're like, oh yeah, we're so doing this and we're so bringing this there. We're so excited. And then God said, right. And so all these connections and the way that they trickled down was, there's this new place I want you to go and what I want you to do, which isn't what you've been doing. So just stick a pin in that and go do this instead. And when we went to do that instead, we were learning that in this place we fell in love with, they are trafficking kids. What are you doing? I don't understand. No, mind you, very uneducated to realize that Atlanta is one of the number one sex trafficking in the United States. So how about that? I did it, right? But we go there and we've got these kids that are on the lake that are being used because their fingers are super tiny and they can untangle nets. I mean, that's what it really boils down to. And so I'm going to go and buy all these kids and I'm going to promise their families I'm putting them into school and all they got to do is to come work for me a little bit. But really, I'm shoving them all in a little square portion of my hut. And they're my slaves. They work for me. And so I wake them up before the sun comes up and they go to bed after it's already dark. They get one meal a day if they get a meal a day. And that's it. And then if they drown and or get eaten up by crocodiles or eels.
Oh, well.
There's more where they came from. So we went and we didn't just dip our toes in the water, like we kind of had been doing. Like we went out to the village in the middle of the lake on these islands where these kids were really still being trafficked, where it's like, oh gosh, now I have to go home. I have this picture of this one boy.
So you're seeing this firsthand. You're literally like standing or
Watching kids
sitting
in
there
the-
watching this happen.
And they're seeing white people for the first hand too, so they're like, uh-oh.
So what were their
Jesus
reactions?
coming.
So it was a market day. So all of the owners weren't there. Some of the wives were. There's a little girl. She was covered in blisters. She wouldn't turn around because she had a job to do and she was going to get in trouble. And I don't know how old she was. I'm terrible with this stuff.
4, maybe 5.
Okay, so she's
Pretty
sitting
young.
on a rock and she is grinding pepe. So I don't know, chili pepper, red chili pepper, whatever, to make for their seasoning for the fish. And she's just grinding away. So I can't get a visual of her except to see that I can see that she's got blisters on her. And when she turns around, I mean, she's covered in them because of that's her job. That's what she does.
Oh.
And the thing is, there's no way you were going to convince her to stop until she was done because she could get in a lot of trouble. When we arrived at that island, there's a little boy. His name is Joshua, actually. And he's the one, I have a picture of him because he had already been negotiated for, they just needed a place. They needed people who were already in a position to support him. We weren't even an organization. We were just 4 people. You know, we didn't realize, oh gosh, Lord, we're going in there and these people are going to see us as hope. And what hope are we? And so every day I see that picture. What became of him that I couldn't save? I don't know how to explain that or how to put that. Most people don't know how to until you're there, I guess. But he was on the shore as our boat's coming up and he's completely naked, no clothes, and realizing, so when we talked to the gentleman that they do some really incredible work with these kids, George Atchera and his son, he said, oh, he doesn't have any. But he told the boy, you can't, because there's ladies, so you can't, because there was another woman that wanted to come with us and she was going to be writing an article. And she was from Accra, the capital or something. And so told him, go borrow some clothes from one of the other slaves around. And so to put something on. So he had a tattered shirt with holes all in it and some underpants. So it was quite a heartbreaking thing. So no doubt when we came home, it was like, okay, this isn't happening. And we're taking a team and we're somehow you can't just go home and just pretend that never happened. So we're going to help them. So somehow we're going to do something. And we really thought, because again, we were thinking again. And so God said, stick a pin in that.
There's a lot of pins of this. Oh my goodness.
Meanwhile, the missionary couple, they're living here full time and in the process of setting themselves to move full time overseas to Ghana. So the next team we're taking, they knew that we wouldn't be going with them. And they were going to be, I can't remember what all the training that they have to go through, different places. I don't remember if they were going to be in Peru
They
or
were
wherever.
in Peru when we went.
Okay. So we were taking a team and we all thought, all of us, we are going to go, we're going to create this new organization. We're going to be like the testing nonprofit. We hadn't filed one document. I mean, I'm just saying, we were one step in faith. My girlfriend that I worked with, is a super dear friend of mine, she was trying to help me come up with, like, we got to name it. Got to be called something. And so she came up with the name, and again, not one document filed, and we just need to go there. And so we had this group of people, and we were just sure we were going to go and start rescuing kids. Not sure what box to put it in. And we got a phone call from the missionary couple, had on one of their short trips before they left to go and, okay, Lord, do you want us in the north? Do you want us in the south? Where do you want us? You know, kind of thing. They met this incredible woman through another contact, some people that we know in Riverstone who have been. And she said, oh my goodness, they've got some kids there that are spirit children and
Witches.
spirit children and
I was looking for brooms when I got there. I'm like, where are the brooms?
I'm like, I don't even.
see somebody die.
We didn't know about the witches yet because she just said spirit children, street children, and then some that have been rescued from slavery from the gold mines. Oh gosh, right, gold mines are there. I didn't even think of that kind of thing. Okay, so it really fits with yours, and I hear that she
Ooh, can
is
I
really.
throw that in there? Little caveat. Y'all remember that show Gold Rush? Well, there's a show
yeah.
called Gold Rush, and they are.
I don't know if it's still around.
Yeah,
but
it was on A&E. Well, anyway,
oh, yeah,
they
okay.
were the group of guys were in Ghana when we were doing our trip up there,
Oh, really?
and they heard what we were doing. They wouldn't talk to us.
They would not.
They would not engage with us at all. You know, man,
But
that
they
was
left.
an interesting
They left.
experience.
Yeah, they left.
Yes.
They left. soon after.
Clearly, we were doing the opposite of what they were.
Right.
Ironically, though, we didn't encounter any kids that were like that because
No,
when
we
we
didn't.
2 weeks before we're leaving, team meeting, all praying. Okay. And by the way, we're going to go see this woman. And we don't know if what we hear is she's got these 55 kids. They have no sponsors. Maybe God's having us start small. They fit into this at-risk category of these kids need help. And we can be a voice here. Let's do it. So we're going to go up there. We're going to meet her. And it's in a part of Ghana we've never been. How exciting. Let's go. And so we get there. Oh, 2 weeks before, right. 2 weeks before. But let's do our homework because I don't know what a spirit child is. I've never heard of that before. So I'm Googling it and I'm like, so honey, there's this website. It says Al Jazeera. I'm all worried. If I click that, are we going to like have some homeland thing?
Yeah,
going
somebody's
on?
going to come knocking on your door.
I don't know. That show's really uneducated, right? But I wasn't sure. And so So we play that one for everyone. I'm like, so I'll just play it on mine so that you all don't have that pinging on your home. And just in case. So we all watched it and it tells that we went in February of 2013. In January of 2013, they had the very first arrest. And this guy is an undercover Ghanaian journalist who was trying to make a stand for this still happening in the North. These old traditional belief systems of the witch doctors deeming children as evil spirits and no longer human, and working with concoction men. So the witch doctors are soothsayers. They call them juju. And working with the concoction men who make well, if you drink this and you die, then of course, then you're an evil spirit.
Yeah.
Of course you are. Except that it's poison and it's known poison. So
Everybody's
everybody's
going to
going to die. And it's
No
really
babies.
ironic that every child that goes to the soothsayer, every one of them, they're a spirit child. So
Yeah.
it's really interesting. And the video that this undercover journalist was showing is the soothsayer has these rocks that he lays out, and he has a stick, and he's chanting and calling upon the gods. And so it sounds just really terrible, and it sounds also, as we joke, whatever, that it isn't as heavy a topic as it really is. But the reality is these people are in extreme poverty. And it's so extreme that something as basic as going to the doctor for your checkup or having malaria and being able to get the medication you need to be able to come out of it takes you away from the farmland when you're having to go and take care of it. So then if you're not farming and working, then we're not being fed. It also costs money that they don't have. That's frivolous. To think about a child that requires the kind of medical care that a disabled child would take, which are the type of children, something isn't quite right with this child. I'm going to go to the witch doctor and ask for them to help me because I've gone to the doctors and they don't have an answer. So now I'm coming to you. And because they're so spiritual, it doesn't matter if they're Christian or Muslim or whatever, their minds are so tied to those old African beliefs in the spiritual world. It's real there. It's real. I'm not telling you that it's not here. It's just that we're so caught up in our material items that the enemy doesn't need to have the spiritual world to reach us because he can just, distract us otherwise. But in any case, so this journalist, he had a passion, and his passion was, I'm going to break this wide open, and I'm going to go to the Ministry of Health, and I'm going to ask them, will you partner with me so that we'll make arrests? And the police are like, if you could prove it, but you can't prove those things are happening. They happen quietly. And he's like, so if I orchestrate this little sting, he had it all set up. He got a fake residence and a fake baby and a fake everything and went to the soothsayer who said, your child is this, that, and the other. And yep, right, spirit child. That's the reason that you've had all this trial and tribulation in your life. And so he was able to prove that it was happening, that these people, they're seeking for answers, and the witch doctors, they're preying on it because just like the enemy who lies, cheats, and steals to take your dreams away, well, these people believe it because if I lose my husband, my world ends. If I lose my farm, the world ends. If my in poverty isn't just money there, it's your community, your relationship with the people that you are in community with is a big part of your poverty there. So if they turn against me because they think that my child is causing this, so it's not because they want their child to be murdered. It's they can't compartmentalize things the way that we do in a way, and we're saying, well, it doesn't really matter. I'm supposed to stand in the gap. And yet we have found some discern things differently. And so that's where the Lord has allowed for us to kind of come in and find some little hole that we can step in. And so in February, when we went there and we met with Mama Lottie, in her very falling apart house that she houses a lot of children with love, we learned that she had sponsors for all of her children. Oh,
Oh.
none
We
of
drove
them.
all this way for nothing.
None of them are involved with in a slave trade rescue.
Okay.
They're all street children. Her main thing is I can't help everyone.
Right.
It's very difficult, and I do it often. Have to turn people away, but I am this woman who's trying to make a difference with what the Lord gave her as her purpose. I can't help them all, and the ones I help have no one. So there's no mom, there's no dad, there's no family. They're street children. They got, whoever it is who they were left to takes them to the market and it's like, I'll stand right here, I'll be right back, and never comes back.
Never comes back.
That kind of situation. Or there's a variety of stories, lots of them. And then witches. That's where we learned about the witches.
Yeah.
She has a lot of those where, tie them to a tree, they're witches, they poke their eyes out, and I mean, it's terrible things that
It's just like the Salem witch trials.
I had read at one point to where if you're thought to be a witch, then they'll take you out and do those things and drown you. And if you die, then they say, oh, well, I guess we were wrong. But if you survive, then it's obvious that you're a witch and they'll go out and kill you anyway.
And as a woman or a girl, they're the really bad witches.
Yeah,
And so, they get, sometimes it's like, okay, your child and my child are playing at school, okay? And you're the teacher, and her child comes to you and says, hey, I have a headache now. And you're like, oh, well, I'm going to go get the parents and tell them because they were out there playing and Casey's son was over there playing with them. So Casey's son must have put a curse on hers. And that's why.
just
Poor
amazing
little
stuff
Johnny's
like that.
just trying to play some soccer.
Yeah, he's just-
He done got deemed.
And so the thing is, because he's a boy, he, the consequences for his being a witch are a little different than maybe if he was a girl. And so she was taking them in, and I will honestly tell you that our involvement with that particular ministry with witches has been just by witnessing, we haven't personally been involved, but I'll tell you, it is very heartbreaking to hear their stories. But she said, so tell me more about this, this spirit child, because I've heard it. I think it was like on the news. And I'm like, yeah, because listen, it's a video. She's like, send it to me because I want to watch it. I want to watch it. Okay, fine. So we said, well, listen, God brought us here and it wasn't for nothing. So let us do this. We've got some men with us. Your house needs help. From the toilets being broken to beds broken, doorknobs broken, lights broken. I mean, just making a list. And the Lord's awesome. One of the guys that's on our board, Eric, he has a business here in the States that works and does, remodeling and building and tiling and all. This is like his gig, man. So he was at home.
awesome.
It was like something tangible that was like, okay, I can feel like I'm doing something
Right.
positive because this is my skill. This is my gift. This is the thing I can do to love on her.
Until we got to the toilet. Somebody left us a gift.
I've been there a while.
It had been. I was
Oh, that-
like, yeah. Are we at the airport?
Well, I was going to say the airport smell came right back.
So, okay, so the guys are like, we're ready, and Ghana gets starts getting dark a lot earlier, 5:30 there.
Oh, wow.
And so, but it also gets light a lot earlier too. Rooster starts crowing pretty early there. So I need to go find Lottie and say, hey, listen, we need to go to the store, get our things before it's dark. We'll see you in the morning kind of thing. And I can't find her anywhere. And finally, I didn't think to look at the front gate, and there she is. And she's in this very submissive pose, looking down, digging her foot in the sand, is this man who looks like he'd been crying for hours, is talking to her. His eyes are bloodshot and watery. So I come up and I'm just kind of waiting for a time when they're speaking in Frafra. I don't speak Frafra, so I'm just waiting for a moment that it doesn't feel rude to say we have to leave. And it's really in their culture not appropriate for me to say, I'll see you later. You have to.
Right,
You ask
okay.
permission to leave. And so
So once you're
It's
there,
very,
you're there.
it's very formal.
God.
A goodbye takes 15 minutes.
yeah, and so I'm just kind of waiting. Our executive director, who's in country, lives as a national. He is there. Of course, at the time, nobody's anything, right? Once Upon Faith was all just like this figment of our imagination, but he has been Troy's Guinea and Daddy since day one. So he's been along for the ride, and a gentleman that's with him who is his Troy's always calling our oldest his trusty steed, always goes with him places. Well, Charles became his trusty steed for the journey to help drive, because it's quite a distance from where we came in and arrived to go all the way as far north as you can go to Bolgatanga, because it's literally a hop, skip, and jump to enter into the next country of Burkina Faso. So it was Charles was along to help out, and he has a passion for working with kids, so he was super excited to see what we're doing and be a part of it. And so, unlike all the other Ghanaians in the entire country, Eddie is very punctual. So like we gotta go.
Right.
And over there, like we gotta go. And so I'm waiting and I'm like, so Lottie, and she's like, yes, ma'am. You know that story we were talking about, the journalist? Yes, ma'am. So this man here has a spirit child. What? What's happening? She said, so he has one, it's his grandchild. And she's telling me right out of the gate, I can't take him. He's an infant, and I can't do that. I don't have a way to take care of him, and he requires 24-hour care. And I'm like, okay, so with all the back and forth in that moment, plus the prayer that I'm lifting up to the Lord, Lord, as soon as I say anything else, what I'm actually saying is, we're along for the ride with you here. We're willing to take responsibility. And I don't have anybody around me right now, like my husband, to be okay with that.
Back me up.
So,
I was still messing with the toilet.
So here I go. So Lottie, so what are we going to do about it? Which really translates to what are we as the folks that came from the United States, and Eddie and Charles, what are we as a team doing about it? And she looked up with the biggest smile. Do you want to go see him? And I said, well, can I ask a few questions first? Okay, so you said it's not like you to go up to someone that's a stranger and say, hey, Howard, I know you from, well, it is so not like me. I may seem real casual like this, but I'm really an introvert. That's actually me. And so to ask someone personal questions about their life, that's just not my thing. And to think that we were going to be in this moment where in a second's notice that we have to make a decision about what to do about a child, I was not prepared.
Yeah.
There's no manual. And so I'm like, okay, so how old is the child? 18 months. Okay. And oh, by the way, 18 months wasn't like he said 18 months, because they don't do it like that. The child was born in a certain season. And so then your mind's counting backwards. Okay, to do the math. How do you know it's a spirit child? Well, besides the fact that the witch doctor told him.
Oh, right.
He'd been trying to kill the mother for a long time, sucking her blood. The dad had abandoned at the beginning because he told her to kill. And so they starved him and only gave him water since August.
Oh, my.
It's February.
August.
And they're upset because the landlord is now very upset. So they don't own their own home. So the landlord's upset, saying, as a community, this child's putting us all at risk.
Wow.
You need to, be done with this. And so the gentleman that is the night watchman for Lottie said, Lottie takes in kids, so come there, see if she'll help you. And so what day he comes, all of this happens on the day that we arrive, when we had just shared with her about all of this story, when we were still there on moments that we're getting ready to walk out the door, so that we still had time to assess all the stuff on Lottie's house that needed to be done, so that she could still be blessed, right? Like, he just perfectly planned it all out. So the punchline is, go to the rest of the team and go to Eddie and go, okay, so... See that man over there behind me? He has a spirit child. Everybody stops.
Yeah.
Are we going? When are we leaving? Are we leaving like right now? Where is the child? What's happening? And so the thing is, the mother abandoned the child, the father abandoned, and the mother's parents were left with the child.
Okay.
That's where we were at. And we go there. So if you can imagine what a child would look like, who is as old as he was, who had been starved for as long as he had been, who had only been given, every time he cries, give him water so nobody hears.
Oh.
And that's what he looked like. And we had team members that had to walk off because they were getting this balance of, I can't process all of my emotions without feeling like I'm going to fall to pieces or punch them in the face.
Right.
Which one do I do? And the thing is, it's not punch them in the face. They're truly afraid.
Right.
But in that moment, with our little education, all we could think of is, what is wrong with you? How could you look at this child and think what you're doing is okay? It is only because of where we're at now, trying to figure out, how do you bring them the love of Jesus? Judging them isn't how you do it. And how did you get to where you are so we can unwind while you think what you're doing is okay? And that's what a lot of the work that Dave and Ellen do, is sharing life with them. Sharing life. Through their continued work after baby GN came into play, working with them, I will tell you that So that was the last child, the very last child that was deemed a spirit child
Really?
in the village. Because the elder says, we'll never do it again. So that's a big deal. This little boy in that moment had no idea, and today will never know the biggest play that he had in history. And so when we talk to people who are from the north, they'll say they don't see a lot of disabled children, and they don't see a lot of disabled children because they were murdered or still being.
Oh.
This village, if they have more, they're not deeming them this. And so
do they
maybe, well, you know,
They come knock on David and Ellen's door. We have a baby. So
we're
luckily God has been good, and funding is really slim, but every time that a baby knocks on the door, we have just enough funds to take another child in. So
baby GN has hydrocephaly. He still needs more care. Ultimately, we believe that every child deserves a family. That's a big part of our call, is that we're never really ever called to have an orphanage or anything like that. I'm not dissing also anybody's call to that, because that's between you and the Lord.
Right.
Just for us, our focus, whoever it is that comes in ours, they need to be in a family situation. So they have caretakers that help them. Foster parents is what we would call them here. The word they use is caretaker, but it's the same. And so baby GN has foster parents, because ultimately it became very clear that his live-in situation is, regardless of the heart, regardless of the elders' involvement to say it stops here, his care was suffering, and he was able. So his rescue got started in February. By April, our friends became long-term missionaries and moved where to? Bolgatanga. And they became very involved on a daily basis with this care. And the big thing about that is that when you become a long-term missionary, the first year you're not supposed to be doing work. You're supposed to be getting acclimated to community and learning language. And but baby GN couldn't wait.
Yeah.
And so one surefire way to get acclimated into the community is sitting in the long lines in the doctor's offices and in the hospitals, and for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, as the folder goes from one box to the next box to the next box.
Yeah.
And so they got in the community all right, but so anyway, we learned a lot through that. So by June, he had his first surgery. He needs to have surgery again, but
So this
that's
was
a whole nother trial.
2013 that you.
it's 4 years left.
Okay.
So today,
He's a big boy.
he is a big boy. He requires 24-hour care, although he does sleep through the night, which is a big deal because he never did before. He'd just scream and scream and scream and scream. And so we were going through caretakers often, because that's just too much on anyone. Their neighbors were complaining. People, stigma, he's a spirit child.
Still, even
So,
okay, yeah.
So then we're like, okay, we need to move him from the north to the south. We need him to be as far away from where he's from.
Which is kind of like going from New York to Atlanta.
Okay.
If y'all want to know culture-wise.
But through all of the conversations, the decision was made that GN needed to come out, and so we needed to move him. And the couple, the gentleman Charles that went with us on the day that baby GN was rescued, calls and says, "I want to know why you didn't ask me if I would be a caretaker. You know, my wife and I have been wanting to have children."
Wow, this is really great. We want to respect the time of our listeners, so we're going to pause this right here. To hear the rest of GN's story and more about Troy and Casey and their ministry in Africa, join us next week. In the meantime, you can visit them at onestepinfaith.org. Also, don't forget to visit us at teoflifepodcast.com. Subscribe on iTunes or your favorite podcasting app, or follow us on Twitter at teoflifecast.
Until next time, in the words of Monty Python,
Make tea, not war.